All right, ladies and gentlemen, so this is part 2 of our video. We got ice cream in the freezer, and it's definitely getting firm and set. Now we're going to go into making our biscuits. For this particular part of the recipe, we're going to make sure that we take some items, take the items a little slow, or take the process a little slow. Remember, we're doing seasonal fruit compote, ice cream, and shortcakes. We've already got our ice cream going. We're going to next go into the shortcakes, which is basically a biscuit recipe, or I want to say scone, but again, biscuit, or aka shortcake, because it's a little sweet and savory. And then I'm going to follow up with the seasonal fruit compote. So the recipe asks us to actually do about, I think, 2 cups of flour. What I'm going to do with this 2 cups of flour, level this off. Just make sure I have the right amount. I'm also going to sift this. Since I'm actually at the stage, I'm going to sift this flour. There's a reason why we're sifting it. You all are going to actually have to tell me why I'm sifting the flour. I do apologize. I know this is a small sifter. I had a large one, I just don't know what happened to it. So we're going to sift it in the small sifter here. So baking recipes like this, again, they have you sift the recipe for a reason. And again, you are going to have to tell us, or answer that question, why do certain recipes ask for items to be sifted. So in this particular situation, when I sift, I'm going to add in my other dry ingredients. I'm going to add in my 1 teaspoon of salt. And I'm going to add in my 1 teaspoon of sugar as well. Now, the most important part of this recipe. This is the most important part. I was going to actually go back on that, but I'm going to say, this is definitely the most important part. Our baking powder. Now, you all are going to have to answer the question, why is baking powder important? And as well, what's the difference between baking powder and baking soda? They're somewhat related, but they're also a lot different as well. But you all are going to answer that question. So far we're going to ask, or the question out there in the online classroom, so to speak, is why do some recipes require flour or dry ingredients to be sifted? Next question is, what is the difference between baking powder and baking soda? They're definitely related in some shape or fashion. I can't give it away why or how they're related, but they also react differently as well. And I'm kind of giving it away, but I don't want to give it away too much. Okay, all right, here we go with our dry ingredients. I'm going to clean up. Whoop, I'm so sorry. I'm going to clean up a little bit because you all know how I am about cleaning up as I go. Just proper mise en place. And we haven't talked about mise en place yet, but or mentioned mise en place, but you all know mise en place means to get everything ready. So make sure I want to be properly mise en place and organized as well. So there we go. Now, the recipe calls for 2 cups of all-purpose flour, which we have in here. It calls for 1 teaspoon of sugar. It calls for, actually, you know what? I'm just reading this recipe. It actually calls for 1 tablespoon. So I need to follow through with 2 more teaspoons of baking powder. And this is very important, actually, because if I didn't put enough, it would have actually affected my recipe. Recipe. I'm glad I caught that. So again, let me go back to the list of ingredients. 2 cups of all-purpose flour sifted, 1 teaspoon of sugar, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, which I've actually just compensated and corrected myself. The first time I went around when I sifted this, it was 1 teaspoon. Then I had to come back around and just do 2 more. So 2 teaspoons equal 1 tablespoon. Okay, I did 1 tablespoon, 1 teaspoon of salt. And I'm also going to put in 8 tablespoons of butter, which have been cubed already. They're in my freezer. 3/4 cup of milk, 1 egg, and 1 tablespoon of milk. But that's actually for when we baste our eggs shortly here. But I'm going to make sure I incorporate these ingredients that's already in the bowl. Okay, now I'm going to get my milk and my butter. There's my butter coming straight out the freezer. Not sure if you all can hear, but my oven is on already. I'm preheating it. I'm gonna make sure I get the exact amount of milk, because this liquid is also needed as well for this recipe. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna add in my butter. It's been in the freezer for quite some time. This cubed butter. It's probably, I'm gonna say, large diced butter. It doesn't have to be this route, but I like it. I like it at the large dice. So now what I'm doing is I'm gonna take this down to what we call texture of almost like sand. In order to do that, I'm going to have to use a little bit of my body heat to crumble the hard butter. The butter needs to be chilled, or in this case I'll say frozen, for a reason. You all are going to tell me why it needs to be chilled or frozen. There's a reason why biscuit recipes ask. Change this up. There's a reason why biscuit recipes ask for your butter to be chilled, or in this case frozen. And I'm using my body heat to kind of help break this down, just crumbling it together. And as I'm crumbling, all I'm doing is just taking it, and I don't know if y'all can see what I'm doing, but I'm crumbling it and making sure that I break the butter down and use the flour in between to kind of get, like, my finishing product. I want to almost have like a sand texture. And you got to use your body heat as well, in your hands, excuse me, to help break this down. All right, so let me go back to this recipe again. Recipe: 2 cups of all-purpose flour sifted, 1 teaspoon of sugar, 1 tablespoon of baking powder. And again, you saw how I compensated. Originally, I read that wrong. I put 1 teaspoon. I know that 3 teaspoons equal 1 tablespoon, so I had to follow through and add another 2 teaspoons with that baking powder measurement to make sure I had that full measurement of that 1 tablespoon of baking powder, because if not, it would have messed up my entire dough. Very important. So getting back on track, I have 1 teaspoon of salt, 8 tablespoons of butter, which is a full, and I'll show you this is just a full stick of butter, and 3/4 cup of milk, which I'm going to put in after I get to my level here with my crumbly stage with my mix here. And then also I have 1 egg yolk, and then I have 1 tablespoon of milk. And that's just for purposes, just to put up. I'm going to use those last 2 ingredients, the 1 egg yolk and the 1 tablespoon of milk. I'm going to use that as a wash on my biscuits so that I get a nice color on it. And it's very important that you get these cubes down, because this is still butter. It's very important that you grind it together, rub it together between your fingers, You can even do like this as well, because you got to make sure, and I'll show you, got to make sure you get almost like a sand-like texture. And you cannot leave like whole pieces of butter like this in the dough, because it will not work. So the butter is definitely coming down to temperature, so I have to work real quick, because I don't want to have this actually melt too much on me. I need to make sure that it's still cold in its cold state. Some other things you can do as well, almost just like our when we made that whipped cream yesterday, you can make sure that your ingredients, you can refrigerate your ingredients as well. And there's a reason that you refrigerate your ingredients when you're making biscuits. You got to make sure that everything is chilled, so that scientifically, when the biscuits are made, when it's baking, it does that chill temperature helps out with the baking process. So that's why you got to make sure your ingredients are chilled. This is almost like making pie dough as well, even though we're not going to follow through with that and go in that direction. But it's almost like pie dough. Pie dough, you can use liquid as well. You can use either milk or you can use water. I've had some people either use a little bit of vinegar, beer, wine. Not saying we're going to be doing that in this class, but you can still use it. All right, so I'm getting there. See, the butter's definitely coming down to room temperature, because it's actually taking on the temperature of my hand. But it's still chilled, but I can definitely tell it's taking on temperature in my hand. And I got to work quickly, because I don't want this butter. What I don't want is it to be like oil. I want to try to keep it in its state. Now here's some other thing as well. If you feel that your butter is actually too liquidy, like olive oil or canola oil, something like that, where it's getting there, you have to chill this dough. When I say chill, meaning you have to rush it to the refrigerator and let it chill down, get back to chill temperature, and then you can pull it out and start over. All right. So getting there. You can also use a biscuit cutter as well. I don't have a biscuit cutter. Again, you all know I'm kind of old school. I like to do a lot of things from scratch. That way I know the background on it and purpose. All right, we're there. Hope you all can see that, but it definitely looks like a sand texture. Again, I'm just going to get a few more of these cubes of butter and make sure I break it down. It's definitely where I want it to be at. This is perfect. All right, here we go. Now I'm going to add my chilled milk. And I'm just going to fold it, bring the mixture together, pull any off my hands. Again, that milk has to be chilled. And it's definitely still cold, because I can feel it on my fingertips here. All right, and almost just like our pasta dough, what I'm trying to do is bring everything together and get the pickup stage, so I can get everything off the bottom of this bowl. Now this is very important as well. I want to press and bring the dough together, but I don't want to work it and knead it like pasta dough or bread dough. All I'm doing is just bringing the dough together. We're almost there. I'm going to move this to the side here. Matter of fact, I'll move it to the side. I'm going to move my cutting board. Really didn't even need my cutting board. Wipe it down a little bit. Now I'm going to take a paper towel and dry it off. I don't want too much moisture on there. Now, if something happens at this point, meaning you got to stop what you're doing, you can always put this back in the refrigerator, put a chill point on it, because again, you don't want this to come down to room temperature. Again, I'm not trying to press this too much. But the goal is to make sure that I pick all these items up and get a little bit more moisture in here. There we go. All right. Put that there. All right. So here's the dough, so you all can see it there as well. I'm gonna press this out. This dough should make about 6 biscuits. That depends on the size of your biscuit cutter. Also depends on how you cut it. Move it over a little bit, because remember, I'm working on an area 12 by 12 inches, so I want to give it enough room. And I also want to make sure I try to get at least, I'm trying to make sure I get a surface area to make sure I have enough for at least 6 biscuits. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we'll probably get 7 out of here, because I have enough dough left over for a 7th biscuit, probably an 8th biscuit, I'm thinking. Just bring this back together. So all you have to do, again, it's somewhat of a sloppy dough. You don't have to have it perfect. And I have to hurry up because I'm also noticing I'm seeing some little clumps of butter in here that are coming down to room temperature. And I want that butter to come down to temperature in the oven, not at room temperature. Okay, looks like I may actually have a little bit more. It's funny, a couple of weeks ago when I made this recipe, I actually got 6 exactly. But then again, I wasn't using this cutter. All right, I'm just going to take this last one and press it into, and we're just going to throw it on the board there. So there we go. 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 biscuits, or 10 and a half. All right, now, still trying to hurry up. I have to hurry up because, again, my butter is already coming out. So this is what I'm going to do. Separate my yolk from my whites because I need to make an egg wash. You can use this egg white for breakfast. Some individual put it on the eggs as well, or put it as a wash as well. I'm just going to use it for breakfast in the morning. Now, I'm going to take about a tablespoon of milk, whisk this up real quick. And I'm just making a simple wash. Did I have to use milk? No, I didn't have to use milk. I could have actually used a little bit of water. I'm going to put a little bit, I'm going to eyeball this. I'm going to put a little bit more milk in there. Nothing fancy. Now I'm going to take my wash in and brush a layer over my biscuits. All right, there we go. All right, I'm gonna put this in the oven. There we go. You can see with the wash on there. Okay. 10 biscuits or 9.5 biscuits. We're gonna bake that for about 10 minutes, and then we'll start our next recipe. But our biscuits definitely need to be done and at room temperature when we do our compote and we bring everything together. So there we go. We'll sit back and wait for the next recipe. Enjoy.